Stanford Cardinal won the 2021 National Championship in the NCAA Women's Tournament behind a beautiful Princeton offense based on reads, execution, and allowing players to make plays. In this breakdown, we're going to look at the four main options, how they get the ball into their Princeton offense, what triggers some of their split cut action, as well as a breakdown of their chin motion offense. My name is Coach Gibson Piper. If you enjoy this breakdown, I have a full clinic breakdown on my website, thebasketballplaybook.com. If you enjoy the X's and O's and more breakdowns, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at halfcourthoops. If you want to support this channel, you can subscribe to my newsletter at Coach's Cut. It's an extended breakdown of all these YouTube videos with raw film, other concepts, and X's and O's that I like to break down. I will be the first to admit that I do not know all the ins and outs of the Princeton offense, and I was really not even familiar with most of the terms, calls, or reads that specific Princeton offensive coaches will be experts in. In order to prepare for this breakdown, I researched and watched some Princeton breakdowns on YouTube and different resources to help get familiar with some of the concepts for my own personal knowledge and growth as a coach, and then tried to apply my own terms to those concepts and actions that I noticed when breaking down the film, especially of Stanford women's Princeton offense. Now, I've listed all those videos below in the description if you want to study up for yourself and see what I dove into in order to learn more, as well as some other edits that I've done will be included in the Coach's Cut breakdown from teams like Nebraska Wesleyan and Richmond. The first entry we're going to look at is a regular elbow entry, where the ball gets passed to the elbow from usually the slot into the elbow after the big cuts, usually out of the post to the elbow. And it can be a flash, it can be random, it can be designed, but the first one is just kind of in their play, in the flow of play, throwing the ball to the elbow. A good example of that here is we get a little drag ball screen and then a wide pin down screen. Nothing comes of this, no real advantage. So the ball gets centered. Once the ball gets centered, the big flashes to the elbow, and then it goes right into the trigger and their split cuts and whatever reads that they're making. Some NBA teams call this action flash game, but I just looked at the first entry I saw was just a regular elbow flash entry. Next we have the point entry, or the point series. This is one I'm probably the most familiar with. I studied early in the college men's basketball season, both Richmond and San Francisco, where it's about similar to chin, where we get a handoff on one side, an exchange on the other, and then after the ball gets reversed, the slot is going to go and set a little brush screen or almost a down screen for the big low. We get an elbow flash, and then that triggers their, continuity of their split actions, whatever the reads are, however they're being defended. So it's basically almost like a chin entry with the player starting off low, and then flash to the elbow after a little bit of brush action. Helps relieve a little bit of pressure, but that's their point entry. Next is their chin entry into their chin motion, which is basically the point entry, but the player or the big in the low post or short corner is going to flash to the nail or the middle of the floor. So we get that same handoff on one side with an exchange on the other with four guards out. And then after the ball gets reversed, it's going to be the big flashing to the elbow or the nail, and then we have cutters coming off of it, for the first back screen and the flare screen. And we'll dive into all of their chin options when we look at the chin motion, which was one of my favorite motion offenses to kind of learn, continuity offenses to look at from this past season. The last entry is what I just called a through entry, which is pretty self-explanatory, where the ball gets passed to the wing, the lead guard or the point guard then cuts through the opposite side. So you see the ball gets entered to the wing in this scenario, and then the opposite slot fills from the opposite wing. We get a slot fill, and then the big flashes to the elbow after being in the post. They do have an option for a quick post up out of that, but essentially it's just flash to the elbow, and then they go right into like their elbow stuff or whatever reads they're having out of the through entry to that high post. The two main examples that I want to focus on for the reads is what I'm calling high splits and low splits. So the first one is high splits, where the ball gets passed to the elbow and the splits are set up high on the wing, almost in like the opposite slot. It's just what I use. I think some teams call this action away. I just call this action high splits, so I can have it easier for my terms. So when I say high split, this is what I'll be referring to. Now when I say low split, that just means after the ball gets passed to the elbow, that guard is then going to go to the ball side corner and just play a little split game, low splits. So pass to the elbow, follow to the ball side corner, and we have reads out of the low splits. So high splits and low splits. So when I reference those terms throughout this breakdown, that's what I mean. Now we're going to look at some reads out of these split cuts. I want to show the entries with the reads as we go through this. The first one we're going to look at is a reject read, or refuse, or backdoor cut. This first one going to be out of the elbow entry. We're just going to see a backdoor cut off of these split actions, mainly starting off with the high splits first. So here we see the ball gets entered into the elbow. We have split cuts high, and when you reject is when the defense either jumps above or loses sight of you, or if you know you're playing an aggressive D that's going to try to really take you out of those screening situations, and you're going to reject and cut backdoor to the basket, the other player in the split action is going to open up. So we're going to see the elbow cut here, or after the elbow, we're going to see this cut here. I love how Stanford, every time they plant hard on their outside foot and really set this reject up. They really set up this cut, and I think it's a great lesson we can take from as coaches, really teach how to set up these cuts and cut hard at the basket. Next entry we'll look at out of this is the point entry, where we get the ball reversed, little brush for the post low, elbow, and then we get a low split reject cut. So on this example, we're going to see the ball side corner with the split cuts, the low split cuts that we talked about. After the elbow entry, we're going to see a great setup. The defender here is going to jump to the high side. So as this split cut action occurs, the defender jumps on the high side here, loses vision, loses contact. We can see the baseline is going to be open for that reject cut backdoor. Another example of that same exact play here, as the ball gets reversed, enter to the elbow, defender just a little bit high, loses contact, loses sight, backdoor is wide open. Here's an example of their through. So you can see they pushed the ball up the court, nothing was there, they passed the ball to the wing, cut through. After the cut through to the opposite, the slot fills. As the slot fills, ball gets thrown right to the elbow, high split, reject, backdoor for a layup. So the first read is reject. Stanford usually tries to do this as much as possible. It's almost like their first option, even if they're not playing high, just to go for the reject. The next read is to curl the screen. So when the screen is set, to curl wide to the basket. So anytime the screen is set, Stanford will try to curl this action, especially in the low splits, not so much in the high splits, but definitely in the low splits in the corner. They'll try to curl this action and get right to the basket. Now, when to curl is kind of specific, is essentially when you're being trailed by the defense and they're not going to switch. So when the defense trails or loses contact of you and you feel like you can curl to the basket and you know they're not going to switch, a curl is a good option. The way Stanford sets up their curl action is almost designed to open up like a side ball screen or a side handoff. So to get the defense moving, to curl and have the player cut inside and then flow right into a handoff or a ball screen. In this example, we can see when the defense overplays on the baseline, we get a back door. So it's almost like a curl open up and beat the pressure back door. In this example, we're going to see the team switch. So they set this little curl or pin down screen. We get a curl and then an open up, and then it flows into a side ball screen. That's generally speaking the most common action you'll see a curl out of when they have either the elbow entry, through entry, or point entry. They're going to set that low split, curl, open up, and go right into a handoff or a side ball screen and empty that side of the floor. This is also the same for a reject read out of the corner. After the curl, the player who curled is going to exit out to the opposite corner. That empties out one side of the floor for the pick and pop of the bigs from Stanford, or go right into a side ball screen. Really hard to help on that side ball screen because there's nobody really there to stop the ball. Another read, or if you will, reaction, is to open up. So as the split cuts occurs, to open up if the split cut goes to the rim or towards the basket. So when the split cut is set and it's a reject or a curl, the player who sets the screen holds their screen and waits for that player coming off the split cut to tell them what they're going to do. If they go to the basket, the read is to open up. As we can see, it opens up and goes to a backdoor cut here. But open up basically to either catch and shoot, cut backdoor if you're overplayed, or flow into a ball screen or a handoff. So here we see a little screen, open up, and then catch and shoot. If you screen well enough and you screen quick enough and you have great split cuts, you can catch the defense off guard and be able to have open and shot catch and shoot opportunities off of these split cut actions. And I'll go over how I drill this with my team in a little bit with some of the drills that we do, because we work on split cuts a lot, especially in the off season for skill development stuff. But if the player who is coming off the split cut goes to the rim, you open up and look to catch and shoot or drive the ball. An option for the screener or the player setting the screen is to slip. We'll see this often, especially in the NBA with more spacing. Generally speaking, you don't get a ton of slip actions in college. You can every once in a while, but for the most part, these are designed for certain situations and usually get these reads pretty rarely, not once a game or twice a game even. When do you slip? Is essentially when teams are going to switch, so you have them below the switch. Two defenders go with one player, so you notice that two leave. Or if you want to surprise their opponent and just slip right to the rim, as you've set screens the whole game, and you think you can set a surprise and catch them off guard, is look to basically slip to the rim, look to get an easy opportunity, or draw two with you or two with the other player. Look to slip and kind of create chaos. Most of the time, these slips are going to be designed in the Princeton offense, at least, to set up the outside opportunities. So if a player cuts through and is going to slip, you're going to see the slip, generally speaking, is going to be looking for a secondary action after that slip, like a pin in or a post up dive or certain things like that. So the last option, really not really too much of a read, is essentially to chase, or what I just call a ball screen. Could be a handoff, but essentially after these split cuts occur, either high or low, the player at the elbow then throws it to the open, or the player who pops out to the wing, and then goes into a spread ball screen, or what I just call chase action in my terminology. So essentially look for the splits, throw it, and chase it. So wherever you throw it to, go chase into a ball screen. Pretty simple. Last option after all the split options are exhausted. Thank you so much for watching my Princeton offense from the Stanford women breakdown. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to watch the full breakdown, it is available for members on my website, thebasketballplaybook.com. I also did an extended breakdown for Coach's Cut that I couldn't share on YouTube because of some copyright issues. If you do enjoy that, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to doing more breakdowns. I have the NCAA tournament best X's and O's coming out, a breakdown on Baylor's offense and defense coming out, and then of course the NBA title contenders and playoff preview. I look forward to doing more of these, and I'll talk to you next time.